A total of 209 abortions were performed in 2014, which is just slightly down from the previous year. However, according to Guam Memorial Hospital's medical records section, not a single document showing that these women received informed consent pamphlets was turned in. The informed consent law that requires physicians to provide an informational pamphlet to women contemplating an abortion at least 24 hours prior to the procedure went into effect last year. The pamphlets were printed at the end of March, and effective June 2nd, physicians were required to have women look over this pamphlet and sign off on a checklist before an abortion can be performed. The doctors are required to report to GMH the number of certified checklists they completed on a monthly basis. But according to GMH, they have never received any reports from any physicians on the number of certified checklists they've collected.
Well, actually, it was as expected. I didn't expect them to obey the law or follow the law. The informed consent legislation requires abortionists to do something they don't want to do.
Based on Department of Public Health's 2014 abortion report, from June 2014, when the law went into effect, to December 2014, a total of 121 abortions were performed on Guam. But in response to Tim Rohr's Sunshine Act request, former hospital administrator Joseph Verga said, quote, "There are no responsive documents. GMH did not receive any checklist certifications pursuant to the informed consent law."
I happen to believe that, little babies are being destroyed, and that, so we can't stop that completely, but at least we should have in place certain protections. So that's why I do this.
Rohr, a pro-life advocate with the Esperanza Project, says this is a huge blow to their efforts to reduce the number of abortions on Guam. The purpose of the informed consent law was to educate women contemplating an abortion on the health risks of an abortion, other alternatives, and agencies that could assist them should they decide to keep the child.
So a woman seeking an abortion would have a little booklet that would show her what her baby looks like. Now, that's death to an abortionist business.
Rohr believes doctors who perform abortions on Guam are choosing to ignore the law because, at this point, they can get away with it.
Because the enforcement of the law is not very clear. Now, there is an enforcement in there, and they are required to do what they're supposed to do, but whether or not those penalties are levied against them, and those penalties go up to $100,000 per incident. Would probably ultimately depend on the AG.
This afternoon, Senator Frank Uggan Jr. introduced Bill 129, which mandates action from prosecuting authorities for noncompliance with the informed consent law. You can read the bill online at PacificNewsCenter.com.